Hello there guys, LaserBeast here. Now this is a Grimrail Depot Mythic Plus Season 4 guide, with everything you need to know about the trash and the bosses, so let's go. To get there quickly, take the portal from the guy next to the Flight Master in Oribos. You want to go to Gorgrond, and then once you're at Gorgrond, it's just a quick flight up to this location on the map shown here. Now when you start the dungeon off, the old challenge mode tactic used to be to invis pot skip this room, but it looks like from the counts on the PTI you're going to need to clear pretty much all the trash in this dungeon. So the notable mobs in here are the Grimrail technicians. Now they will run to the iron stars and start to activate them, and if you do activate them it's going to deal big party damage, so CC them as best you can, and the cast is interruptible, so just make sure that you don't let it go off. Now these technicians will also cast a spell called 50,000 volts on ranged DPS or healers, so you need to try not to stack up because this will stun everyone near you as well if you get hit by this. The actual cast for this can't be kicked, but you can stun or CC the mob in another way to make sure it can't cast. Now for the first boss, so aim to kill both these guys roughly at the same time as best you can. If Rocket Spark dies first, Borka will do a lot of damage to your tank for the remainder of the fight, and if Borka dies first, then Rocket Spark will do a lot of AoE damage to your party. So the key tank mechanic here is to keep an eye on Rocket Spark all the time as where he is in the room. When he starts channeling Missile Barrage, the tank needs to make sure that Borka is facing towards him, so that when Borka casts Mad Dash, he runs into Rocket Spark, stunning him and interrupting the cast. That's the only way to do this. Tanks, remember that Rocket Spark can't be directly tanked himself, so just make sure that you hold threat on Borka, and always be looking out for where Rocket Spark is, as he will change position frequently throughout the encounter. Everybody needs to look out for the target eliminator cast, which put the big red target in circle on the floor. Just make sure you don't get hit by that. And when Borka casts Slam, this will also interrupt any spell casting and lock you out of that school briefly, so try not to be casting when he uses Slam, especially if you are the healer. Slam also damages anyone around it that's near it, so make sure you don't stand with the tank for that. And make sure that you get out of the way when he casts Mad Dash, you don't want to get hit by that as well. The healer just needs to be aware that the most dangerous part, possibly, of the fight is that when one of the bosses goes down and there's one remaining. Like I said at the start, if Borka's alive, then make sure you got all your cooldowns and stuff for your tank and get them to use their defensives. And if Rocket Spark's the last one alive, just be ready for some nice AoE healing on the group there, because they're going to take a lot of damage. Once the boss is down, you're going to want to head up the ramp and kill the 3 bombardiers. Now you might want to take these one by one, as it can be quite tricky. What these guys will do is just continuously throw grenades, which you just need to try and avoid as best you can. They also do a lot of damage to your tank, so it's safest to take them one by one. If you try and pull all these at the same time, it is possible, but you need to bear in mind that they can reset aggro, so they may end up taking out one of your DPS or your healer. It's best to just play it safe and take care on this ramp, so when you get to the top, run across the platform and the cutscene will start, which you can just immediately skip to save time, and then you'll find yourself on the train part of this dungeon. So the mobs you need to look out for here are the gunners. So these guys do an ability called Shrapnel Blast, which is going to do big damage in front of them in a bit of a cone, so make sure they're not facing the group for this, and if you think you might be hit by them, just make sure you run out of it straight away. In the next packs, make sure you focus down the Grenadiers, and watch out for the Brutes as well. These guys have an enrage that does stack up, so try and dispel this or soothe it when it gets to a few stacks just to keep that under control. As you move up the train, you're going to encounter the Syndices. Now these guys will drop an AoE on the ground, which is like a spinny sword that deals AoE damage to anyone standing near it, so move away from those and kite where you can. It's a good idea to kite back down the train where you've already cleared, obviously, because you don't want to get extra packs into your pull. And really this whole train section of this dungeon is quite tight for space, so it's going to be quite tricky with sort of space denying affixes such as Sanguine, Storming or Spiteful, so make good use of running back down the train when you need to. The Syndices can also cast a Silence too, which is deadly if it goes onto your healer. This spell will also pulse AoE damage to anyone around you, but the way to avoid this is to make sure no one is around you, so just do your best not to stack up here. If nobody gets hit by the AoE, then the effect is cancelled. It's pretty deadly if it gets onto your healer, so just make sure that no one is near them, and run away from anyone that you see this effect on. Once you've killed these guys, you end up at the second boss, Nitrog Thunder Tower. So initially this guy will just use Blackrock Mortar and Grenades, so avoid these as best you can and don't stack up together. At 60% health, he'll run off and jump into his Assault Cannon, which you're going to need to destroy so he comes out of it and then you can kill him properly. It's quite a big boss room, this one, so make sure you don't line of sight your healers and things and try and stick together where you can, but not stacking up too tightly. At this point, adds are going to start to spawn, so your tank needs to pick up all of the adds. When there are no adds up in the room, the DPS can safely target the boss's turret to get that down a bit quicker. So the priority for the adds to kill are the boomers and then the grenadiers, and when they die, loot them. The priority on these is the boomers, so these guys are going to drop Blackrock Mortar Shells, and if you pick these up, if you go to one of the nearby turrets and use the number 2 spell, the Homing Shell ability on the Assault Cannon that the boss is in to deal heavy damage to it. It should take 3 casts of this to get the boss's turret destroyed. Using this ability does put the cannon on cooldown and ones adjacent to it, so to speed this up, on the second wave you're going to get 2 boomer NPCs spawning, so you'll be able to shoot 2 homing shells. If 2 of your party members fight at the exact same time, you can get around this cooldown. This may not be possible in the Mythic Plus version of this fight, but it's worth a try as it was a tactic again back when you could do this dungeon on challenge mode. There's another interaction with the turrets, so gunners will also spawn which drop black rock shrapnel, which can then be used in one of the nearby turrets to deal big damage to the adds if tanked close enough. And you can even damage the boss with this when he gets out of his turret eventually, so save some for that if possible. The grenadiers will drop black rock grenades, so you'll get an extra action button for this. They've each got 3 charges, so make sure that you use them on the adds. The other things that they need to do in this fight are watch out for suppressive fire. If you're targeted by this, you can line of sight it by getting behind one of the pillars. Also avoid slag blast as well. Now this is going to put fire in one of the 3 sections of the boss room, so you're all going to need to move out of that section. Try and move with your group and not get stuck. If for example the middle platform gets filled and your group move to the boss's bit and you move to the entrance bit, you're going to be a bit far away and you may be out of line of sight of heals. Avoid stacking up as well to minimise the damage and disruption from black rock grenades, and once the boss's cannon is destroyed, the adds will stop spawning and you just need to deal with taking the boss down. It can feel quite hectic this fight, but it doesn't matter which one of the DPS deals with the cannon mechanics, as long as you just work together and get it done. So when the boss is down and you come out of his room, there'll be fire travelling down both sides of the platform. When this fire is gone, take the path on the left as the fire will then go down to the right. Now the Grimrail scouts that you'll encounter next are going to cast a spell called Arcane Blitz. It's quite easy to see on the floor, there's a pool of arcane energy, so move away from these as soon as you can. You can stun the mobs to avoid these casts going off if you need to. The Farseers also do a chain lightning damage to your group as they cast the lightning shield, which is going to damage anyone that damaged them, and they use it to absorb some damage from you too. Once the absorb is used up fully, the shield will drop and no longer deal group damage. You might want to pull these guys one by one, especially on higher keys. And there's one more big pull at the end, AoE all these guys down. You might want to use some little cooldowns here, and then it's time for the final boss. So, Skylord Torva. Now, she's going to cast freezing snares, which are very easy to see. They look like frost traps and they're going to have a big beam of light coming up from them. Don't stand in these or you will be damaged and rooted for 6 seconds, as well as anybody within 6 yards of you. You can break the snare with any abilities that have that function. You'll need to move out of the path of spinning spears. You'll basically target someone and throw a spear at them. Keep an eye on a pet as well, Raccoon, which is in the air. He's going to fly over the boss room and cast Thunderous Breath, which is going to place diffused energy pools on the floor in a large area of the room. Diffused energy pools will also drop randomly throughout the fight, so they're going to be more and more. A tip for these is when they do change, when he does cast the breath over the room again, when there's a pool on the floor, it's very unlikely that during the next breath there's going to be a pool in the same place again, so you can have a good idea of where you could need to move. If you gradually move around the room, making sure that you move away from the traps and from the energy pools, it should make things quite easy to avoid. There's potentially quite a lot of group damage on this fight, so just do your best to avoid things. The last ability to worry about is the Hunter's Mark, so if targeted by this, after 6 seconds the boss will throw a spear at you, which will then explode when it hits you and deal damage to everyone within 8 yards of you. So make sure that you preemptively run out of this and run away from your group if it targets you to minimise the damage it deals. Just a reminder for anybody that struggles with this, you can now turn off the movement of the scenery around the dungeon in the accessibility features shown here. And there we go guys, that's the Grimrail Depot guide done. So thank you very much for watching. If you want guides for lower and upper Karazhan in Mythic Plus in Season 4, and also I'll be doing one on Iron Docks as well, have a look in the description for those. If you enjoyed this video, thanks so much for watching it all the way to the end. Please leave a like on it if you have enjoyed it, and consider subscribing to the channel for more guides like this for World of Warcraft. I've been LaserBeast, have a great day guys, catch you next time. Cheers.